If you're a business owner and you've used EOS Traction and it's worked really well for you, but you've graduated and you're wondering, I don't know, what's next? Well, I'm going to tell you specifically where to look. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. All right, so I was early with EOS, and I've worked with other operating systems, and I've helped other groups. I'm no longer a formal EOS implementer or involved in those other areas, a guide or a coach or any of those positions. I think there's a lot of wonderful tools out there, and I think EOS is a great tool. And if you want to know a secret, read the book by Patrick Lencioni called The Advantage, and you'll get an idea where a lot of that came from. The reality is that those are wonderful, time-tested tools. And EOS does a great job marketing it, and the way that Gino narrowed it down, I think, was spectacular. And at their own volition, they say, hey, after a couple of years, you start to graduate out and you can run it on your own. But the reality is that as we know, you keep hitting those ceilings. The skills that it took to get from here to here are different than the skills to get from here to here. Just like when you were small and growing, EOS might have been fantastic and it got you from here all the way up to here. Woohoo! But now, how do we go from here to this next level? What's different? And I've actually had the good fortune to work with dozens of companies, actually hundreds of companies, and I've got a handful that we've gone from entrepreneurial all the way to billion-dollar market caps. I've got I don't know how many that we've had 10x growth spurts and different things to where they really, really grow. But the relationship with your outside person really starts to matter. So with this, doesn't mean you can't do it internally. However, usually having that external coach or an advisor, and I'll tell you the difference between the two, really can help you become more objective, start seeing those blind spots, and then break through that next ceiling and break through that next ceiling. Because the reality is you've got the tools now, you've got the operating system, but it doesn't mean you're done. It doesn't mean you're finished. It doesn't mean there aren't other horizons and challenges down the road. So a lot of times where I really come in is I do strategic advising and some external leadership coaching. The difference between a coach and an advisor, coach usually is going to be a lot of times is more of a consultant, somebody who's been a trainer, somebody who has some experience in that space, and they're going to help coach you they'll ask you lots of questions to try and create an awareness, help you start looking at things in a different way, try and create the awareness within you internally. Nothing wrong with that. Great coach is super valuable. Just like for an EOSI or a guide or any of those other operating systems, a lot of times those are consultants that are teaching a process, but they aren't necessarily collaborating with you. And that's where it's a little different. An advisor is going to be somebody who has that expert insight, is going to give you the guidance, is going to collaborate with you. We'll call you out on those things. Be fearless in how they approach it. Be compassionate, but they're going to help you make those synergies and connect those dots in different ways. And remember, the further up the food chain you go, the bigger and bigger the organization gets, the more it's important for you to think. The decisions you're making are going to become much, much more important. And this is where having that person that you can lean on is going to become invaluable. So as a strategic advisor, I'm really uptight and selective with who I choose to work with. Even though I'm highly compensated for what it is, I still want to make sure that the people I'm working with, I know without any shadow of a doubt they're going to get at least a 10x plus multiplier on the investment they make with me, let alone their time. So the three things I look for, as an example, are one, does this person have a self-awareness that, man, they've done great things are wonderful, things are good, but they're starting to become the choke point in that growth. And the reality is you can have a great business operating system, but still, as that senior leader, start becoming the choke point on the growth of the organization. This is where having somebody from the outside who can help you break through that personal ceiling, or maybe a leadership development ceiling, is going to be invaluable. So number one, does that person have the ability and understanding that they're becoming the choke point? Number two, I look for companies that are either in an industry or are they willing to look at things in a disruptive way? Because the reality is virtually everything can be disrupted right now. And as long as you have that willingness to consider it, we're going to be able to collaborate. I'm going to work more as an advisor and collaborator with you, facilitator sometimes with your team, and we'll figure out as a group, how do we look at things differently? adjusting that perspective, looking around the corners, looking further downfield. Those are the areas where having that outside person who's got 40 years of experience under their belt can really, really help you and challenge you to look at those things in a different way to make those adjustments. And then lastly, and this is fairly unique to how I approach it, I only look for organizations that are dreaming incredibly big, that are being audacious in how they're approaching things. Now, the reason I do this is, you know what, if you're looking to grow 10, 20% next year, fantastic. I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm not your huckleberry. Because there's a ton of people out there who can help you with that. But what I love is when I can really challenge and get a senior leader to create that vision. And that's one of the most important things that we need to have as that senior leader, is have a clear vision of where we're going, and it's audacious as hell. It's through the ceiling. They want to grow 100x in the next 10 years, or in the next 5 years. Now, what that does is it creates a very narrow path, a much more selective path on how we can get there. But it also helps and works really well as a clearing device, forcing device to say no to all that other noise and horseshit. No, actually, if we're going to be at $1 billion organization, I got to get my head out of my ass, and I got to be doing this better. I have to build an amazing team, and that's where having that outside advisor maybe does some interviews, maybe helps you in those different areas, but is really curious and meets you where you're at, is going to be the person that can help you break through from this ceiling into this one, and then this one into this one. So ideally, you found some value with this. And you know what? If you think you're a CEO and you're in that area, most of the people I work with are going to be that $20 million to $1 billion range. Most are $20 million to $500 million range. And you're saying, you know what? I'm the choke point, it's pissing me off. I'd be happy to talk with you. If I'm not a good fit, I may know somebody that I can help you be introduced to. If you've got a great business operating system that's working for you, cool. And the reality is a good advisor, a good coach, is going to be able to speak any of those business languages, meet you where you're at, but really help challenge and push you to think to that next level. So if you think that's you and you're interested, let me know. I'd be willing to invest a half hour of my time. We can talk, see if there's a fit. Keep smiling.